Welcome to Behind the Scenes, the podcast that puts people behind the scene in front of the scenes at least once. Today we welcome here in Kafka an international content creator, Mac Praed. Mac is from the UK but tours around the world with different bands. In the past he worked with Palaye Royale, Grandson, the Faim and probably many more well-known artists. Currently he's on tour with the pop-punk band City Dove, who is playing tonight at Kavka Zappa. We are very stoked to have him here in our little studio. Welcome, Mac.
Hi everyone.
Yeah, we're just with the three of us, so you couldn't get an applause, but we can do. Woo!
Yeah, we can add that in later.
Yeah, in post.
1,000 people here.
Yeah.
So,
Fix everything in post. You're welcome. Thanks for coming. We're really happy you're here.
Of course.
So you're currently on tour with Say It Off. How is it going?
It's going really well. It's so nice to actually get this tour going because this is the Welcome to Elsewhere Part 3 tour, formerly known as the Midnight World Tour 4, Part 4, The Love of God. Please don't make us reschedule this again. It was originally supposed to be happening, I think, in April 2019, and we had to just delay it for a couple of reasons. And then obviously the pandemic happened, and then it was supposed to be in 2021. And then because so much of the tour is going through Europe, all of the guidelines and restrictions hadn't changed by then. So then we had to push it back a year, and now we're here. So,
yes.
So it's finally happening. And yeah, it's just nice to be back out with the Set It Off lads again.
Yeah, did you have to reschedule the whole Europe tour, or did you already did a part?
No, we did. We rescheduled it over and over. I think 5 or 6 times.
Better? All right. Is that better? All right, cool. Okay, cool. So yeah, people who probably don't know, you're our first guest here, so we just have to figure things out with the techniques and things.
Of course.
I'm not sure if you're gonna be the first episode though, because we are planning to do our studio there, but like you see, we have to still. So that's why we probably have some technical issues today, but I hope it doesn't mind. Okay, anyhow, back to here. So when you're on tour, how is the workload? Is it high? Is it really high for you, or is it all right? Because to me, it sounds amazing to be a tour photographer, but I think I underestimated a bit.
I think it really depending on obviously who you're working with. I found that quite a lot. Yeah, so for the most part, my workload will be behind the scenes photos during the day, and then live set, a gallery of photos from the live set. But over the years, it's now changed. The workload's kind of increased to including a recap video, and then any help with additional content, short form content, reels for Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and then kind of a mix of all of that. And you can get away with doing stuff I'm shooting for this reason, but we can also use it for this. But that's where it kind of really comes down to the band's discretion of what they want from the content and what you kind of agree to do beforehand.
Because do you have a schedule you follow every day, or you just go with the flow? Or?
Touring is kind of quite scheduled. We have every day we get a day sheet which tells us when we can go into the venue, when sound check is, and basically outlines, when bands are in press and what time the venue opens, what time meet and greet happens. And so we do have a couple of hours every day where we can do whatever we want. So there is sort of a bit of a schedule. Personally, the thing that works for me is I get up quite early in the day. Well, early for tour.
Early for creative people.
Yeah, pretty much. So I usually get up at about 8 in the morning, make myself a coffee and in the bus, and then I'll edit video from the night before, which is fine. And then and then I keep on. So I edit stuff from the night before video wise, and then usually try and get a nap before everyone else wakes up for coffee at about 11. and then we shoot throughout the day. If there's anything that needs to, if there's anything specific that needs to be done, and then I guess the thing that happens every day is the set.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fairly like a routine part of the day, but everything else is kind of as and when you go and when you can fit it in.
Yeah.
Like, because working with bands, some days they have press, some days they don't, and it really depends on where you are. Like if you're in the center of a city somewhere, it'll be easier to go out and grab coffee and do extra things, or shoot extra content. But then some days you find yourself in like a warehouse estate miles away from anywhere else, and the only thing you can do is sit on the bus and go like, okay, well, today's a write-off.
Tour life is great.
Yeah, no, it is good fun, but there are some days where I think everyone goes, oh, like everyone, when I say I tour for a living, people go like, oh, it must be a non-stop party and it must be all of this kind of like chaotic kind of thing. And to an extent it's quite chaotic, but I don't party. I'm so boring on tour. Yeah. I get to bed as early as possible.
Really?
Yeah, so I kind of I say early as possible. It's usually about 1 or 2 in the morning.
Because the gig ends at like 10, 11, something like that.
Yeah, 10, 11. And then so how I do my editing is I edit straight after the gig, like all of the photo set. Yeah, just so it's kind of.
I can't do that.
No, I have to do it. Like I have to do it that way. Otherwise, well, just the idea of sort of like when I'm in work mode, it's easier just to keep on going with that. And I used to do video the same night as well, but it's kind of got to a point now where I prefer having the mornings to myself, and I get up a bit earlier and have a bit of like decompression time and quiet time before starting the day again.
Yeah. And how do you make like every day different like videos or photos, because you're on the tour and like they play every set the same every night? So how do you make like a difference in the videos?
It's one of those things where I still sometimes struggle with it, especially on the longer tours. Say if you're out with a band for 2.5 months, for the most part, the set doesn't change. Some days it might be a bit longer, some days it might be a bit shorter. But when you get to this kind of level of touring, well, the level that I'm fortunately at, everything's sort of like the lighting is pretty much the same every night, and you run into the problem where you go like, oh, every day looks the same. What I do is I challenge myself for the most part. Like, say after I get into the groove of the tour and I start going like, oh, after I start noticing everything starts to look the same, I will I set myself challenges where I'll be like, okay, tonight I'm only going to shoot on a certain focal length, or I'm only going to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's kind of like it's a small challenge, but it's one of those things that it makes your whole way of shooting completely change. If you go like, for example, like at the moment, the tour that I'm on at the moment is a long show, and there's certain beats in the set where I go like, okay, this is likely to happen and this is likely to happen. So if I want to get a photo of, say, Cody doing his kind of God walk on a crowd where everyone holds him up like this, I know that happens in the third song if it's like a denser crowd, and then I know, okay, well, if I want to get a photo of that, I either need to be on stage or I need to be at the front of house desk so I can get that shot. But then if you then add that in, okay, but I only can use like an 85mm or a 24mm for this part of the set, it kind of changes how you compose an image and how you think about sort of like, okay, well, I'm going to need to find like a different spot for this. And you're still taking photos and still doing video, but it changes how it comes out. That's pretty much what I do. I haven't done that so far on this tour because we're only like day 10 into it. Day
10. How long is the tour, by the way?
It's only 19 dates.
19. Okay, it's a short one.
Yeah, it's a month, but it's 19 dates. And so we've got a day off tomorrow.
So it's
then,
staying interesting until here.
yeah. And the guys put on such a good, like
Yeah.
as you'll see later, they put on such a good set.
Okay, I'm really
thing.
curious.
So yeah, it's
because you shoot this tour only for Set It Off or also the support?
only for Set It Off on this tour.
And is there like another photographer for the support or not?
There isn't. There was someone. The Cemetery Sons photographer was shooting Weathers, but unfortunately they had to drop off the tour, which is
because the gear got stolen.
Because not only did their gear get stolen, their entire van got stolen, which is.
And where did it happen?
Manchester. Outside of their hotel, I believe. Mm-hmm. We just got a text one morning saying, we're not going to be able to play tonight because someone took our van. We're stuck in Manchester and you're in Birmingham right now. So
that's such a weird message, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so sad for the band, but
obviously I'm kind of like paraphrasing it quite a lot. Like, I mean, it wasn't so casual and nonchalant, but it was pretty much along those lines, just saying, oh yeah, just a heads up,
we're not going with you guys.
Our whole, the entirety of our lives have just been destroyed, technically. But, we'll be fine.
It's all right,
Mm-hmm.
All right. So anyhow, when bands ask you to go on tour with them, do they give you like certain artistic rules, or can you do your own thing?
I'm fortunate to be at a point where quite a lot of the artists that work with me trust me to a point. To just be like, do what you like. We like what you do, so do whatever you want.
Okay.
And I mean, that's not the case with every band. I know a couple of like creators who, if there's a band who have like a specific image, they'll say like, okay, for example, everything needs to be in black and white, we're only allowed to, we're only doing stuff like this or whatever. And it's not, I don't think it's a very common practice as far as I've found out myself, but it has happened before.
Yeah.
Like,
so bands really gave you like rules you had to follow in the past?
No, not really. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I mean, there's certain things there's like certain very minute things that you'll find, like if you're doing like text overlays, you have to use the right hex code. So everything like, sort of like consistency kind of things like that. Or if you're using any kind of fonts or font packs or whatever, you have to use you don't have to, but it's one of those things that I like doing, is reaching out to the management and saying, okay,
what's the branding?
I need a branding sheet. So anything I do looks consistent with what they're doing and what the band are doing. Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, when a band is in an album cycle, it serves people best to try and tie it all in together. Like, it's a small detail that people appreciate, like on a subconscious level, if they're used to seeing everything from one band like posting in black and white, and then they end up getting like a heavily saturated color image, you kind of go like, oh, it's a bit weird. It's a bit weird. Yeah. Or the worst thing that happens is you like deliver all of the content, and then when the band go to put it on social media, they just chuck like a black and white Instagram filter on it or something. You might as well sort of like that hasn't happened to me, but like, yeah, if you I think it's
but I think if you prefer like black and white photos, you just have to ask like a black and white photographer and not ask someone else.
Yeah, and I think that's where I feel quite fortunate, is the bands that I work with trust me in the way that they go like, okay, well, we know how you shoot and we know the kind of like how your images look. Mm-hmm. So, and that works for us.
All right, so,
great. But yeah, no, I haven't. Aside from like the hex code colors and all of that kind of like the small nitty details. Aside from that, I've not ever had to do anything like that.
And do you still have like high standards for yourself, or?
Oh God, yeah. I honestly, I was I met a friend on tour, and like I can't remember what city it was, but we they were sort of watching me as I sort of like edited through my images, and they're like, "Oh, that's a good photo. That's a good photo. That's a good photo." I was just like, "No, crap. I am so brutal with my own with my own editing and like the selection process, because when I was an assistant for a photographer before I started doing this, they kind of like drilled the idea of, if someone sees 10 good images from you, they'll assume all of your images are that good.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if they see 100 varying images of varying quality, they'll only they'll pick you out on the worst ones.
All right.
And that's something that I've kind of, it may or may not be true, but it's something that I like to hold myself to, because I don't know, I don't like putting out images of, that aren't as good as I want them to be,
How many pictures do you deliver like every night to the band? Like
it really depends on how well I've shot the set.
Okay.
I had an absolute, well, it's funny, like I feel as though I had an absolute stinker of a shoot last night. Like I was just, I found myself in the wrong place at the wrong time and all of this, and sort of like I was not on my A game. But like as I was shooting, I was really annoyed at myself. I was like, this is going to be crap. This is going to be awful.
I feel you.
And then I was sort of like, just like, and it's a long set that we're doing at the moment. And so I was like, oh, this is going to be crap. Like sort of like my photos are going to be crap. The guys played fantastically as they always do. But I was like kind of like behind my camera going like, oh God, I really should get a new job. Like just kind of like I felt I was doing so badly that I was just like, yep, okay,
I'm done.
Yeah, I'm done. Gonna become an accountant or something now, because I'm clearly
I had like
not
the
cut out for
same
this.
like a few weeks ago. I was like at Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes. They played in Brussels.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not like the photographer of Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes, so I just shot for the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And we had like 3 numbers in the pit, but the light was so bad. I was so angry. I left at like I shot those 3 numbers. I was like, oh, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm gone.
Yeah, I've had a couple of shows like that, but back to the original question, I try, and I think on average, sort of, and this is bearing in mind like it's stuff shot throughout the day, and like little portraits and extra stuff behind the scenes content, it's usually in the realm of about 100 to 150 delivered photos a day.
That's a lot though still.
Yeah, it's still a lot. And it really depends on the content. I think yesterday was like 80 maybe, because we didn't shoot much during the day, and maybe that's why I didn't have such a good set, because I wasn't as warmed up. But yeah, and it's silly because you always doubt yourself, and then when you're looking through on the edit, you're just like, what was I thinking? Like these are fine. These are all right. But yeah, I have a tendency to overshoot when I'm sort of in a bad headspace, but you know what I mean. When you feel as though you're not shooting very well, you end up overshooting quite a lot. And you go
really? I'm like, no.
Do you?
I don't shoot a lot then.
No, I just go like, I double down. I'm a stubborn, like I'm stubborn. If I feel as though I'm doing badly, I'll just keep on shooting, because I'm just like,
oh no, because I think, oh no, I have to go to all those bad images later.
Oh yeah,
so
no,
I'm like, no, I don't want to hurt myself.
I've just got very quick at like culling everything, so I just kind of like blast through it, close my eyes on the bad ones. I'm just like, yeah, no, this is awful.
All right, cool. When we saw that you work with a lot of well-known bands like Palaye Royale, Grandson, and now Set It Off, but you probably didn't start with those names.
No.
So how did you in fact start with photography and videography?
So, blimey, before I was a music photographer, I worked as a photographic assistant for a fashion photographer, and I started that when I was about 21. But it all kind of tied into, at the time I was a session bassist in bands, and I spent quite a lot of time in sort of like our local music scene anyway. So I would take my camera down to gigs that I was playing, and then when I wasn't playing, I would shoot the other bands.
Oh, okay, cool.
And so then when the bands that I was playing with kind of wound everything up, I was still like, hey, I still quite like doing this. And then I was kind of the mate with a camera. People were just like, hey, my band's playing. Do you mind coming down to the show? And I was, young and
for
eager.
Free, people, for free.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's it. It's like, it's a very difficult thing to kind of balance, really, because I'm sure we'll come back to that at some point, is like the concept of building a portfolio versus
when do you have to charge money?
When do you have to charge? Yeah. Exactly. But at the time I was, kind of the mate with a camera.
Yeah, but you already worked as a photographer, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, as an assistant. So
what is the difference then? You just have to.
Oh, with the assistant, with the assisting, I was just the guy who carried the bags.
Oh,
and
okay.
The guy who carried the bags and angled the reflector.
Oh, okay.
I was pretty much a pack mule.
Okay.
So yeah, I did that. I was working, and that was in the fashion industry, and that was.
Did you learn a lot there?
I learned a lot there,
Yeah, okay.
like because I have no formal like photographic training or whatever. Everything that I did is kind of like self-taught through YouTube and working with other photographers on shoots. So that's kind of how I started doing photography. But yeah, then I kind of started out kind of mate with a camera, and then started from there. I had quite a good relationship with a couple of indie record labels in the scene from there, and they would be like, hey, do you want to come down and shoot this artist? So I'd be like, okay, yeah, cool. Go down to shows. And that's when I started talking to quite a lot of smaller pop punk bands, and eventually they would start asking for me to come down to various shows, and did that for a couple of months. And then the first one was just like, hey, do you want to come on tour with us? We're doing a support tour.
And which band was it?
They're not.
Are we gonna know them?
They were a very small band called the Gospel Youth. They stopped working together, and that was a whole thing. But they were for a period of time, they were a band that I did most of my work with. They were the first band who asked me on tour. And then,
how did you feel when they asked you to? Hey, do you want to? Because was it a UK tour? Or
it was a UK tour.
Okay.
It was. I think I could only do half of. I think I only did half of the dates actually, because I had a holiday booked for my birthday.
Yes.
And so I think I did like maybe four or five of the shows, and then I went on holiday, and I was just like, yeah, this was great. And yeah, so I ended up working with them for a couple of years until they stopped kind of operating as a band. And then whilst I was doing that, I was kind of being a bit of a go-getter and, shooting everybody, like asking the other photographers if it was all right to shoot the other bands on rosters. And then.
So you got like a really big portfolio quite
quickly.
Quite quickly.
And that's how I met the Set It Off guys. They came over to the UK for a weekender, like a 4-day weekend over the Slam Dunk Festival. And I was working with another band at the time who were like one of 4, I think. So the first band on the 4-band roster. And in my kind of like slightly overconfident social self, I saw the Set It Off guys doing like their pre-show ritual, and kind of went up to them. I was just like, hey, do you guys mind if I shoot your set? And they're just like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And then 5 years later, they can't get rid of me. But yeah, so that's kind of pretty much how I started. Started with a couple of smaller bands, and then whenever I was on tour, I was that annoying photographer who kind of like overstepped the line. And
sometimes you have to be, because otherwise you're not like the tour.
I don't even know where who I learned it from and who I can put the blame on is like the idea of asking for forgiveness, not permission. This got me quite far, actually.
Alright, cool. But you never like thought in college like I want to be a photographer or
No, I had no idea what I wanted to be in college.
okay.
Actually, in all honesty, I didn't even make it to college. I had no idea what I wanted to be in
Okay.
school. And so I flunked out of college when I was 17.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to a music college in Guildford, the ACM, for about half a year, which I then dropped out of again. And it was very much a case of me not really knowing what I wanted to be doing. And then from there, I went into full-time kind of like office work for a few years. And then, yeah, ended up picking up a camera, and it's the only thing I've really stuck to, which is quite nice. Like I kind of like usually have this fleeting interest in various subjects, and I'll be like, oh, I really want to do this, or I want to do this.
Yeah.
I do it for a couple of weeks and then go like, no, I don't want to do this. And then I do, and I basically move from obsession to obsession to obsession. Yes. And I
you're stuck here.
Finally stuck on one. I was just like, oh, great. This is
all right.
Yeah, this is all right.
No, but I think it's because you can do a lot of different things. And it's always different. Every venue is different. Every band is different. So maybe it's that. Yeah.
And it's also one of those things. Yeah, you wake up in a new city every day. You get to travel quite a lot, and you end up making a lot of friends in lots of places around the world, which is always nice because yeah, it's nice to be in a city and be like, hey,
I'm here now.
I'm here for like 10 minutes. Do you want to grab a coffee? Yeah.
Because you told me that your sister lives like in Sint-Truiden, people. Yeah. But you think you're not gonna make it to grab a coffee?
No, it's unfortunate. Like she's got plans tomorrow, and I've got plans tomorrow. So it's kind of like it's always nice to try, but it's kind of
at least you tried.
Yeah, we tried. But I'm here over for Christmas, so
okay, that's cool. All right, nice. We saw that one of your strengths is like shooting bands promo. How does that exactly work? Because do they come with an ID to you, or do you have to, or is it the other way around? Because I think for Grandson you did some things, for Palaye Royale you did some things. Like
so we so the stuff that I did with Grandson was I was working with Rock Sound magazine at the time, and we were just kind of we were at I can't remember what the name of the venue was, but it was one of those things where we didn't really need to do we weren't really asked to do anything. I was kind of sent down there just to take photos of the live set, but I was met a live set and behind the scenes in like the green room and such, but we had a bit of time to spare, and I was just like, hey, do you want to come and do this? Like, let's get a couple of photos just in case we need it for press or whatever. So that was a bit of a like last minute kind of
cool.
We're in the venue, let's try and do something very quickly. But we've recently just done a cover for Kerrang with Palaye, which was it was also quite a last minute thing. I'm beginning to realize I do a lot of stuff on last minute basis. Really? Yeah,
that's why you're staying.
Yeah, maybe that's it. But yeah, the Palaye stuff we were in, we had a heads up from the management that at some point we needed to get some photos for Kerrang, and we had maybe about an hour in Budapest. We were like, okay, cool, let's do this here, and they were great. We were just like, okay, we're gonna have to go out and find somewhere to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a beautiful city anyway. Like you kind of go around any corner and there's like some like ancient lovely sculpture or whatever, and that works with them quite a lot. But we were super fortunate with the sunset that evening, and we were kind of like, okay, I can't remember the name of the square that we were in, but we were sort of like, we turned around and it was like this marbled, like really nice pink sky and all this thing. And so we were like, okay, let's just get a couple of shots here. And I mean, they're also bloody gorgeous and very good at posing.
Oh,
They're just,
really?
they're just yeah.
That's really nice.
It made my job so much
the
easier.
The background match, the people are nice,
Yeah.
and then you're like, yes.
And I was just like, okay, yeah, let's do this. Showed them the guys, showed the guys the back of the camera kind of shot, and they were just like, yeah, that's perfect. We don't need to do any more.
Oh, that's really nice.
And yeah, they're absolute superstars.
Yeah, I think they're really cool.
Yeah.
Did you already tour with them? Yeah, right?
Yeah, so I God, when did I start working with them? We did a European tour in 2019. I was offered that through a tour manager I knew at the time, who was someone I was working with for a different band. He got offered that tour, and he was just like, and their management like, hey, we need a photographer. And so he was just like, okay, yeah, I know this guy I'm on with tour with at the moment. And he pulled me to one side one day and said, hey, do you want to do this other tour with me? I was like, yeah, of course. And that's how I met the guys. And we kind of clicked.
Yes.
Clicked then. And yeah, whenever they come back, if the scheduling works, we try and make it happen. And yeah, they're good friends. But I think that's kind of actually ties in quite nicely to something I always try and tell people if they ask, like, how do I get into touring, or what's the most handy piece of advice, is I'm aware I'm not the best photographer or videographer in the world. Like to think that would be hilariously arrogant, like, but you don't need to be. I think the most important thing that quite a lot of people don't notice or don't realize is you have to be you have to be able to be trusted, and also you can be fantastic at your job, but if your personality doesn't gel with the person that you're working for, good luck spending 9 weeks in a big tin can with them. Like,
I read somewhere that easy to work with is like more important than your skills.
Oh, 100%.
So I'm also like a big fan of that quote.
Yeah.
Because indeed, if you don't click with the person or you can't get around, you can try, but.
And there's a big degree of trust with it, like in the job, like because it's not just, for the most part, taking photos of the set. You get to access their like bands or artists like behind the scenes life, and you get to you share a space with them. And if you can't be trusted, then why would anyone allow you to be privy to that part of their life? Like, it's just it's one of those things where and that's why I think you find quite a lot of photographers or artists, they end up using the same person for years and years and years.
It's because you become friends, a family.
Yeah, you become a family, especially on the road, because you spend so much time together that it's kind of, it feels weird if you have someone else or
I understand. I think it's cool, but it's also hard because you go to thick and thin. So but how do you keep sure that every band keeps his own identity while staying true to your own style? Because you do a lot like pop punk bands.
There's a lot of kind of like subconscious kind of like notes I make for various artists, of like, for example, if I know like a certain member of an artist doesn't like how they look from a certain angle or whatever, you kind of make a note of like going like, okay, well, there's no point taking this photo because it's never going to get used. And going back to the trust thing, sort of, you don't want to be that photographer who uploads a photo of someone where their face is like this. As funny as it is to
to put like pictures of that of artists,
but as funny as it is to like upload that into a group chat or like really zoom into their face and use it as a reaction to something, you wouldn't put it out on the internet because no one like, I mean, I hate if I take an ugly selfie, that gets deleted. Like, why would I put that up on the internet? Like, so you kind of learn about you learn their preferences of what they like and what they don't like. And then I think for myself, it's just going back to the challenge of sort of working within those guidelines is actually, it's quite nice. Like, and yeah, some things don't work with some things work better with an energetic band than they do with a calm band. You wouldn't end up you wouldn't shoot really like gritty, grimy kind of like on the camera flash stuff with like a chilled out singer songwriter.
Yeah.
It wouldn't really work, would it? I mean, it might work, but I can't imagine like an acoustic show where you're sort of like up real close in the performer's face and like sort of like, I don't know, doing some kind of like really messy kind of like light trail on camera flash photography. Like,
it wouldn't work, I think.
I think there's like, I think the inclusion of boundaries and like appropriate brand guidelines, for a lack of better word, can be, some people you can see it as a limiting thing, but then it also allows you to expand on your creativity in a subset where you can go like, oh, okay, cool, this is, I can't do this thing, but I'm going to get better at this thing.
Yeah.
I think anything can be used as a learning experience.
All right, cool. And so you make a lot of online content for the bands, but how do you manage your own social media?
Oh, so I am going back to the ruthlessness of my selection process. I'm even more ruthless when it comes to what I post. Like, I've been trying to kind of grow out of my shell and include myself on my Instagram page for a while and socials, but for the most part, I don't know. It's one of those things. It's a necessity for the job, but
Do you think?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I have way more traffic on Instagram and socials than I do on my website, and it's just
that's true.
It's just a fact. Like, I mean, no one goes to a website to check out daily content. Like, it's
okay.
So, and the amount of work that I've got through people seeing, oh yeah, I've seen his content on.
That's the thing I heard from a lot of people, but I am also really active on Instagram, but I never get jobs through Instagram. It's always the other way around. People who ask me in person. So that's a funny thing. People say things like that, but it's never through Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, I think it varies really. Like, I mean, I think it's less through my own page, but through, you know, like band pages and member pages and stuff, because like the reach on that is so much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
But then also it might be one of those things where I know I get quite a lot of job offers through management companies as well. So it might be less from someone seeing me on Instagram, but going like, oh, okay, they've worked with this other artist, so I know that they can do this job.
Yeah.
So let's contact it. Like, it's easier to contact someone through Instagram than it is to contact them via telephone or text. Like, if I get an unknown number call, that doesn't get picked up. So
really?
It's like it goes to voicemail. It's just like, hey, just, you know, email me, like, because it's the 21st century and everyone's scared to answer their phones now. Yeah, like you get like,
really. I'm getting when I see a number I don't know, I pick up. I want to know who that is.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm scared as well to like.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a terrible caller. I hate it.
Oh no, I like calling. It's way faster than texting.
Oh yeah, I like calling other people, but like if it's an unknown number, this is really showing my cards now. If it's an unknown number and they don't call a second time, then it sort of, if they call a second time, I know it's not going to be like a you are entitled to compensation kind of thing like this. I know, like it's probably a legit call if they try and call me twice, but for the most part, if my phone rings, I'll be like, nah.
Luckily we emailed you instead of calling.
Yeah, email, great, because I get it straight on my phone. I can see it. I can be like, oh yeah, this is great.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, if you're trying to get in touch with me, email me, because
little bit of promo here, guys, if you want to get in touch with him.
But yeah, but back to the question. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like, if I wasn't in this job, I wouldn't have any social media. Because it's just, I don't know. It's just kind of like, I'm not very interesting. Most part, if I didn't have this, if I wasn't doing this job, I would be like, okay, well,
I have an
Here's-
account, but I don't post anything. I don't have a profile picture. It's just
yeah,
to see other people.
just for watching. Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
I'd have like a watching
Yeah.
account. But yeah,
I think a lot of like content creators are getting tired of social media.
I definitely felt that in 2019. I don't even remember how often I was on tour, but I think maybe I was only home for like 11 weeks of the year or something. Like it was something stupid.
Yeah.
Like because I was working with everyone left, right, and center who was just like, hey, do you want to go on tour? I'd be like, yeah, sure. I was really packing it in, and it was one of those things where I find as a creator, it's this very fine balance of like, is what I'm doing viewed once and never again, or because there's so much stuff and it just disappears on a feed, or is it actually it's one of those things where it kind of like back then I spent way too much time thinking, oh, is it art or is it content? And content being that very sort of like easily disposable, sort of like watch it once, look at it once, like it, and then never think about it again. Or is it art? And then you kind of have that it's hard to articulate, but if sort of like I was trying to look at stuff as like, oh, this is basically I was getting bummed about the throwaway nature of content, and I think that's definitely impacted how I look at social media now, where I don't really post that often, but when I do, it's something I really like, and I try and just ignore comments, ignore likes.
Really?
And yeah, just like I think getting too obsessed
you
on
use
that.
it like for your own photo book, but like
Yeah.
online then.
I use it as like a curated kind of photo book that still works as a portfolio.
Yeah.
Like
All right.
it's one of the, because yeah, if I, as I was saying, like if someone comes to look for me or look at my work, they'll still see work that I'm happy with.
Yeah.
But it's not an amount that kind of overwhelms or is like like so much that you just go like, oh, okay, yeah, they're really, I don't know, it's kind of, I feel kind of weirdly about it, you know, like yeah.
No, I get it, but yeah, I think a lot of people are bored of it because you know it's a lot of people use it for like commercial things, and like you said, they see like 1 second to your picture and then they're scrolling through. So like, okay, I'm putting a lot of work in my pictures, and just like, oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Up to the next one. So
yeah,
maybe.
it's difficult. It's kind of the nature of the beast, really, and you have to be able to separate sort of like, or I've definitely felt a lot better about it after I've kind of realized like what I do is, for the most part, is only going to be looked at once.
Yeah.
And some people don't even like calling themselves like content creators because they feel as though it devalues it and like doesn't turn it into art, like doesn't mean it's art. And I'm just like, well, for the most part, quite a lot of the stuff that I'm doing wouldn't, I mean, some, you could argue, oh, it's an art, but it's not like art.
Yeah.
It's just content. It's like photos of bands doing the thing that they love, purely for the reason of it's going up on Instagram or like social media to be viewed once and then forgotten about.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, quite sort of like some bands' fan bases, you know, will then take that, screenshot it, put it as a wallpaper on their phone, like, and that's great. Like, fair play to them. But I think if you expect all of that kind of stuff and it doesn't happen, it gets disappointing. But then, yeah, I think that's kind of like, I've definitely felt a bit healthier towards my job when I've gone like, okay, you know, I'll have my own social media for what I want to do, and everything else is just kind of noise. You kind of,
And how do you, what's your vision about like a lot of social media channels are becoming video first platforms, And what do you think that means for like photographers in the future?
It's interesting. I was having this talk with a friend a couple of days ago, actually, is
I think I don't like that because I prefer to take pictures instead of videos.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, if you want to be visible with your pictures, it has to be like vertical, not horizontal. I'm like, yeah.
It's so this is where it's like I have quite a controversial opinion.
Let's go.
So I film with the guys that I'm out at the moment. I film everything in vertical video, and I see people cringe and hate it and go, "This is barbaric. Why are you using a DSLR or why are you using a mirrorless camera like an iPhone?" And for the most part, it's because I'm really lazy.
Okay.
I gotta be honest, like the idea of actually, and also when I started doing it, my laptop was, like 10 years old and couldn't handle 4K footage cropped down to vertical video. So I was just like, fine, I'll just do 1080p footage, but I'll film everything at a right angle.
Yeah.
So it's a quarter of the data, a quarter of the file size. Everything works so much quicker. And it was like a speed and efficiency kind of thing. But now it's kind of like, I find it easier to frame on my camera vertical than I do. No, like,
but
okay,
but you're shooting like bands. If you want like the whole band in the picture,
yeah, like
you have to start like
the way that I see it is like video is going to be used as for TikTok, for Instagram Reels, for YouTube Shorts. You're not going to be able to, even if you film horizontally, you're not going to be able to fit in, say, the whole band on a horizontal frame. You're going to have to pan across it. And going back to what I was saying about, is it content? Is it art? Like, I'm essentially employed to make content. And if by filming stuff the wrong way around, which I know it's the wrong way around, but if by doing that I make my job a lot more streamlined, it gives me less time editing. It makes it means I spend less time editing, and I spend more time shooting. And really that's what I'm kind of expected for, I guess. But yeah, I don't think I still prefer shooting photos. I think they have a better longevity because you see a hype reel, and I'm the same. I'm a typical consumer when it comes to it. Like, I follow a lot of very talented like videographers, and I'll watch their recap video once, and then I'm like, okay, I've seen it. I don't need to see this ever again. Like, so it's kind of hypocritical of me to be like, oh, okay,
you have to watch my video 10 times.
You have to watch
please.
it 10 times, please. Yeah. Like, because I don't do that. Like, but I'm more likely to look at a photo for longer than maybe a minute. Well, maybe I'm more likely to revisit a photo if it's really good than a video. Yeah.
I do it the other way. I think I watch videos more.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm better at photography, in my opinion, than videography. So I just rewatch it to see, okay, he's doing that he used that transition, isn't it? So maybe that's why.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I guess it's like, what you kind of, it really depends on where you kind of place yourself. Like, I mean, I would say that, for the most part, video stuff I'll probably only ever watch
because you started
anyway.
as a photographer and you did like video.
The video kind of came in for the sort of like halfway. Well, sort of when I started touring, it kind of gets bundled in.
Yeah.
And you sort of have to be able to do both. Like, it's not the same.
No.
But
you have to, right?
As brutal as it sounds, you have to do both because no one can afford to pay for two different people. Like, especially at the starting level. Like, budget wise, touring is not it's not like corporate work or in that kind of way. Where everyone has their role and they stick to it and you don't do anything out of it. When you start touring, it's pretty much everyone mucks in and does as much as possible.
Yeah.
And stadium filling bands like 21 Pilots, they have a photo guy and a video guy.
I think that's if you like in that band, that's nice
Yeah.
because you can focus on one thing.
Yeah.
Because now you have to shoot like in a gig, pictures and video, and I think that's really hard.
Oh yeah, there's always the time where you go like, oh, I wish I was taking a photo of this moment, or when you look back, you go like, oh, I wish I had the video of this moment. Like you're kind of always tossing up between the two, and you always miss the thing that you want in the other format. But you kind of just, that's why it's quite nice being on tour, because with a band you get to have that moment every night, and you can be like, okay, so I got this song or this moment on video yesterday, so I can get it on photo today.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah,
that makes sense. It's just making sure that actually made sense in my head. Yeah, it does.
All right, and tonight Sedidov is playing in Kavka Zappa.
Mm-hmm.
And they already visited the city a few times. You told me you also visited Antwerp a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Was it nice the last time? Was the crowd nice? Did you all?
From what I remember, it was good. We have, from what I remember, there was quite a strict like noise level limit.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. It was quite a quiet. Yeah, I'm getting nods.
Probably.
That's right. Yeah, it was like something like maybe 90 decibels or something like that, or 100 decibels or something. So it's always fun. It's always weird doing gigs where you could, obviously I never shoot without earplugs, but you sort of
really,
I never shoot without earplugs.
Like, okay.
So I always have them in.
Yeah. Okay.
But even on like, it's weird being at a gig where you're like, oh, okay, I could probably actually shoot without earplugs because it's so quiet.
Really?
Either that or I'm deaf. So, but it was a good show. The crowd were great. Definitely last time. But these shows have been so nice because everyone's been holding on to their tickets for
forever.
3 or 4 years. Yeah. So far they've been really good shows. So I'm excited for tonight.
And did you already had like bad experience with fans or like crowds who weren't that nice to you?
No, I've been fortunate enough to always, I've always had good experiences with crowds.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, obviously with these guys, the crowds, and also with the Palaye guys, the crowds are always really respectful, and it's all very sort of very calm. Like throughout my career, I have been unlucky sometimes, but it kind of comes with the job. Like, and you can't really. I've never actually. There's been a couple of times where people have kind of taken, and it's always really short guys. They always get quite annoyed if you kind of sneak. Like if you sneak in front of them just to take a photo. I've been punched in the back a couple of times by, some, I don't know, 5'1" guy who's got a bit of a god complex or whatever. But for the most part, I don't know, I'm like a 6 foot guy who's not too skinny. Like, I mean, people don't really try. And also like, sort of,
probably the diehard fans know you, right?
Well, that's the thing. Like, and as I say, sort of like all of the bands that I work with now are super respectful. But like when I was, growing up in sort of like underground basement clubs and stuff, like it's not as, I wouldn't say I've ever been targeted for doing my job, but sometimes you get a crowd surfer over your head. Like I've had my speed light kicked off my camera before, like, and that like shattered the bottom of the speed light. Like now, but that was kind of like at we've got this venue in the UK called the Underworld, which is like a great little 500 cap venue, but it's nothing but red. I think they've upgraded it now, but at the time it was nothing but red cans on the stage. So you kind of, there's no photo pit, there's nothing, and so you can shoot with a flash. And I think it was just a case of someone coming over my head, like their foot caught the top of my camera and like kicked my speed light off. So it wasn't personal. They were just having a great time, or they just jumped off the stage or whatever. You just kind of have to let it go. Like, okay,
great.
Having to buy a new one now, but actually, I don't think I even bought a new one. I think I took it apart and fixed it because I'm absolute cheapskate. But yeah, no, I'm fairly fortunate, and yeah.
All right, really cool. Then we just want to thank you very much for your time. And my name is Marijke. Behind the disc is Glenn. And then thanks to everyone who listened, and see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right, it's a wrap.
Yeah.
First
Nice.
time.